You're dreaming. Is it about Mars? Give you something to dream about.
Let's do it.
Do what?
Move to Mars.
You'd hate it on Mars. It's boring.
Don't you understand? I feel like I was meant for something more than this.
You are somebody. The man I love. I'm not your wife. Our marriage is just a memory implant. Sorry, Quaid. Your whole life is just a dream.
If I'm not me, who the hell am I?
Sweetheart, be reasonable. After all, we're married.
Consider that a divorce.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This will be discussing the 1990 sci-fi action classic, Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sharon Stone, Ronny Cox, Michael Ironside. It's an all-star cast. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. You can go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and give us the big thumbs up. You can also go to our page on YouTube, KD9575, and hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. If you do these things, you'll get the latest updates whenever I post a new video. Any wacky article I find on the internet, anything interesting or funny, I'll just pass it on to you. Don't forget to spread the word and tell friends, neighbors, strangers, and enemies. The more the merrier. Total Recall. In this movie, Doug Quaid is a construction worker who's been having these weird, vivid dreams about Mars. This is the future now. So there's a colony on Mars, so it's not some strange thing to dream about, visiting Mars and blah, blah, blah. His wife, can't understand what the issue is, what's going on. And on his way to work one day, he sees a commercial for this company called Recall, which can give you memories, plant memories in your mind of interesting adventures or vacations, so you don't actually have to go on the vacation. They'll put it in your brain and you'll remember it as if you had already been there and done it. And it's like, oh, remember that time we did X, Y, and Z? You didn't really do it, but you have the memory. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. So, because his wife is like, we're not ever going to Mars. Mars stinks. Forget it. We can go on a cruise or something. Go to Disney World. We're not going to Mars. So, he's like, okay, I'll just go to Recall. And, they can give me the memory of going to Mars. And maybe that will satisfy this craving I have. And then I won't have these crazy dreams anymore. So, he goes down to Recall. And he signs up for the Mars package, where he gets all the memories, and they even throw in souvenirs and stuff. But they have an optional extra, where it's called an ego trip, where you can sign up and not just go on vacation as yourself. Now you can go on vacation as a tycoon, or a professional athlete, or an actor, or something like that. And he says, hey, what the heck, I'll go on my vacation as a secret agent. That'll make it even more interesting. So as they begin to implant presumably the memory in his brain, he starts having a wing-ding. Starts flipping out, smashing things around, and they realize that he already has something going on in his brain, that he really has already been to Mars. There's already kind of a secret agent kind of thing going on there already. So the recall people freak out. They knock him out, hit him on the head, and they dump him into a cab and just say, we'll erase his memory of having come to recall, and we'll just say, hey, we don't know anything about it. So Quaid wakes up in the cab, doesn't remember having gone to recall, and when he gets home, he steps out of the cab and is immediately attacked by somebody he worked with on a construction site and a bunch of other goons who are preparing to essentially murder him. Like, you spilled the beans about Mars, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But he's able to use special skills that he didn't know he possessed to overcome 5 assailants, take the gun from him. So he kills 5 guys, runs up to his apartment where his wife is, I don't know, practicing tennis or something like that. Tells her what the story is. She thinks he's having some kind of a psychotic episode because he went to recall, because that's on the warning label. If you go to recall, there's a percentage of a chance that you're going to have a freak out. But he says, no, I've got blood on my hands. This is evidence that I really did kill a bunch of people. So what we discover is that his wife is in on it, and she tries to kill him. He fends her off. He's not really using kung fu or anything. If I do this, that's not as interesting. Fends off his wife, and she reveals, hey, we're not really married. We've only been together for 6 weeks. Really, you're somebody from Mars. You're a secret agent from Mars. I'm just here to keep you under wraps. Your job is real, but again, you've only had it for the last 6 weeks. We haven't been married for 9 years like you think. So she's trying to delay him. Meanwhile, these other killers show up and try to get him. So there's this long pursuit through town where he's, shooting at the bad guys. Bad guys are shooting at him. He doesn't really know what's going on. He manages to shake the bad guys. And then he gets a phone call in a seedy motel with a guy with a briefcase who says, we used to know each other. Here's a briefcase. This will help you and explain everything. So in the briefcase, he finds some things that will help him. Passports, money. And he finds like this, portable DVD player, I guess, the equivalent, the future version, where he sees a picture, basically a video image of himself, telling him, you're not really you, you're me, I'm Hauser, I'm a secret agent from Mars, and we've got to put an end to the evil guy who's running Mars. I used to work for him, but I saw the error of my ways. Here's some information, get to Mars, and do what you got to do, basically. It's to save the day. I know you don't know what's really going on, but here's a little bit of information. Go to Mars, save the day. I don't want to spoil everything. There's a lot of layers to Total Recall. There's a lot of things going on here. I don't want to spoil everything. Total Recall is great. It is excellent. When it came out, it set all sorts of records. It was very popular, very successful. And at the time it was made, it was one of the most expensive movies ever made. Now, a little history about this movie. It's based upon a short story by famed science fiction writer Philip K. Dick. It was called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. And the basic premise of implanting memories is from the book. Everything else was just made up for the movie. And originally, the people who were writing on it, one of the writers was Dan O'Bannon, we love him on the B-Movie Club. He did Return of the Living Dead. He did Life Force. He wrote Alien. Hey! He worked on an early version of this script and was like, as they're writing it, we're like, you know what, this script would be way, way, way too expensive to make. This is the late 70s, so they table it, they set it aside, and work on another science fiction movie that became Alien. So, there you go. Good times. Eventually, it kind of passed through a lot of different hands over the course of many years. At one point, they thought Richard Dreyfuss was going to be the lead role, because originally, Doug Quayle, as he was originally called, was just supposed to be an average, everyman type of character. Later, Patrick Swayze was going to be attached to it. He decided he'd rather do Dirty Dancing. Hey, what are you going to do? Eventually, Arnold Schwarzenegger found out about this, and when the company that owned the rights to Total Recall went out of business, he had Carolco, which is another company that he'd worked with, purchase the rights and basically sign him to be the big star. Again, some people were not sure about Arnold Schwarzenegger being the lead because, again, Doug Quayle was supposed to be kind of a normal guy. who's like an accountant or something. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was signed up, they said, okay, we'll make him kind of a construction worker, because then maybe that'll mean, because all construction workers are big buff guys, clearly. No offense, construction workers. So they signed him to do that, and at this point, Arnold Schwarzenegger was just running the show. He's like, okay, you're going to pay me a salary, and I'm going to get 15% of whatever money comes in. I saw RoboCop last week. I love that movie, so I'm going to track down the director, and that's what he did. And he convinced Paul Verhoeven, who's a Dutch director, to come in and direct Total Recall. Good times. They brought in the special effects guy from RoboCop, Rob Bottin, so you can see he did like all the special effects for Total Recall. And, you know, they brought over Ronnie Cox, who played Dick Jones in RoboCop. Now he's Cohagen in Total Recall. There's a lot of connections here. They needed a villain. They needed another villain, kind of the evil henchman who Quaid is battling throughout most of the movie. And Arnold Schwarzenegger had long been a fan of Michael Ironside, who you might remember was in Scanners. He was in like V, The Final Battle, that TV miniseries. And he kept trying to get Michael Ironside to be in the movie. And Michael Ironside's like, this is ridiculous. No one will ever believe that we're like a physical match, because undoubtedly there's going to be a scene where we're fighting each other. He's like, if the two of us go into an alley, the audience knows who's coming out, okay? And Arnold's like, okay, look, here's what I'll do. I'll cut down on my muscle mass for this movie. And if you look, he still looks ridiculous, but he's smaller than he was in his previous movies like Terminator or Conan or things like that. He's more manageable? I don't know. Eventually Michael Ironside says, okay, fine, I'll do it. You know, I was in Top Gun a few years ago. Count me in, okay? So now we're getting the cast. They bring in Sharon Stone, who's kind of an unknown actress at this point. She'd been in like, you know, King Solomon's Mines and those kind of movies with Richard Chamberlain. So she was playing his wife, Lori, the fake wife, we think. Interestingly enough, there are scenes in this movie where she's like, Quaid wakes up from the dream, oh, it's a bad dream. And his wife, Lori, played by Sharon Stone, tries to like, you know, oh, it's okay, let me kiss you and everything will be cool. Paul Verhoeven wanted her to show more skin. She's like wearing some kind of a nightgown thing. And she said, no can do, which is ironic because Paul Verhoeven cast her to play the evil temptress in Basic Instinct, where she did show a little bit more skin. I don't know. He cast her in that, not because of all that stuff, but because he liked the idea of having an actress who showed the kind of range she shows in Total Recall, where she's the loving wife in one scene, and then boom, she's the evil woman trying to kill him. Like, she can play both those extremes, so they like that kind of thing. So they started to make this movie. They filmed it in Mexico City, and a lot of the scenes of like the futuristic subway is actually just Mexico City's subway system, not very futuristic. And a lot of the appliances, a lot of the things that they used were all things that were real at that time, but they just look kind of futuristic. If you look, there are things that they're using, weapons that they're using. At one point, he's like making some kind of I don't know, he's blending something in the kitchen. We had a blender like that. It was kind of a handheld blender thing. I don't know. They had those back then, but because it was kind of futuristic looking, it kind of worked for their whole milieu that they're going for there. So that's kind of interesting. Anyways, they're filming in Mexico City, and everybody gets food poisoning. Everybody suffers some, like Montezuma's revenge, essentially, except for two people. There was one of like a production designer who was just ultra paranoid about this stuff. So he boiled all the water he used to brush his teeth. He took B12 shots every week just to make sure he'd be healthy. And he was mocked all the time until everyone started, getting ill. The other one was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had gotten violently ill filming Predator. And at that point, he was like, you know what? If we go to any of these third world countries, I'm having my food flown in. And that's that. So he was fine. Good times had by all. There's a funny scene. There's a lot of funny scenes in this movie. I love the scene where they first get to Mars, and the Doug Quaid character, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is in disguise as a big woman with red hair who's like trying to go through customs. And he's like, how long will you be staying? Oh, 2 weeks. Do you have any fruits and vegetables? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I love that scene. And in fact, I still If I can ever give the answer 2 weeks to anything, I got to do 2 weeks. So I thought that was fun. When the movie first came out, it was given an X rating, not because of sex or anything like that, nudity. It was because of the crazy amount of violence. This movie is still, like, at that time, it was like considered one of the most violent movies ever. You know, Schwarzenegger had been in a million movies where he's shooting guys with machine guns and it's all good in the hood. But this is the first time where they show him shooting people, and there's literally just like blood exploding, boom, boom, like spraying over the camera. I mean, just, you know, people with drills, and, you know, I'll see you at the Bobby Richter, where the guy's arms are getting, yeah. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. They actually had to cut back a lot of the scenes and show from different angles because just the sheer amount of blood. He'd punch somebody and blood would be like, go flying. It was crazy. It was crazy. But they were able to cut it down to get a more manageable amount of violence, I guess. I can't explain it. But I always say Total Recall is really kind of an underrated movie because if you ask, there are people who, like me, just love Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. If it's Conan or if it's Twins, we're in. It doesn't matter. There are other people who are kind of like, I don't really like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not into that kind of action, violence, blah, 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 which is fine. For some reason, Total Recall kind of crosses all sorts of barriers. Everybody loves Total Recall. They love it. I can't explain it. It's strange. I enjoy it, but people you never think enjoy it seem to enjoy it as well. So there you go. What can I tell you? It currently has an 84% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Even the critics loved it. As you know, they'd had a remake of it a few years ago with like Colin Farrell and Kate Beckinsale. People didn't like that as much. It's very sad. There was actually a series that was supposed to come out. It was called like Total Recall 2090 or something like that. It takes place in the future. It wasn't very successful either. Spielberg at one point was interested in getting involved in this, and they took aspects of one of the scripts to go and, like 10 years later, create Minority Report with Tom Cruise, which was also based upon a Philip K. Dick novel. So there you go. Good times had by all. There are another couple of scenes and things that I found kind of interesting. There's a scene in the middle of the movie where he's running from the bad guys, and he goes through what looks like kind of an X-ray detector, and they say, "Oh, you've got a gun." Doo, doo, doo. This is one of the first scenes where they actually use CGI. All the other stuff in this movie is used with miniatures and special effects, like special physical effects, not CGI. Another thing that's funny about that, after he jumps through the X-ray thing, it's like there are like 50 TSA agents there with guns. They just let them go. They're like, okay, cool. I guess we're not going to chase you, because all the bad guys run through with guns. And they're like, okay, I guess go ahead. I mean, we're kind of lax with security here. Whatever. Another scene, spoiler alert. They're able, Arnold, as you know, is able to trigger the air-making machine that populates, so that air is now all over Mars. Like the air's become breathable, essentially. And it smashes through these windows. So now all these crazy mutants who were like slowly suffocating, now they have fresh, clean air to breathe. Here's a problem. They've already established that they use like cheap domes in certain areas of Mars that essentially turned these people into mutants. So now, because the windows are shattered, they can breathe the air, but isn't the area totally radioactive? You can breathe the air if you want. It's air, but now you're all suffering from lethal doses of radiation. Very sad. If you look close, Breaking Bad fans, you'll notice the one crazy mutant, Tony, who's got like, I don't know, who's got like one eye and his head kind of looks like a brain. That's Dean Norris from Breaking Bad. He played Schrader. Hey. Gotta look close though, because he looks like a crazy brain guy. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. Moving away from Total Recall. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix. If you have not seen it, under what cave have you been living? Get out there, watch Total Recall. It's great for adults. Do not watch it with small children. I've said it's incredibly violent. But whatever. I'm not your grandfather. If you're going to show it to your kids, you know, what am I going to say about that? So anywho, moving on. I love it. Check it out. If you see any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, anything you want to tell me, anything you want to get off your chest, go ahead and send it on over. I'd love to hear about it. Next week, I'm moving away from the sci-fi action and going back to horror. We're going to be doing the horror classic Dolls, about evil dolls. I guess the name's pretty self-explanatory. So go ahead and check that out. It is not streaming on Netflix at this time. You have to dust off your old copy. I couldn't find it on Netflix streaming. I couldn't find it on Amazon. I couldn't find it on really anything. For some reason, the entire movie is on YouTube. So check it out. Let me know what you think. As I said, send me any comments, quotes, favorite movies, favorite scenes, anything you want to say. You can reach me on our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the thumbs up. You can also reach us on whatever, YouTube. How about that? It's absolutely free. Hit the subscribe button, why won't you? And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. As you know, every episode I end with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. You pop your memory cap before we can activate you. Richter goes hog wild, destroying everything that's taken us a year to plan. Frankly, I'm amazed it worked. So there it is. Good times had by all. Before we leave Total Recall forever, I just want to say one other thing. I like how at the end of the movie, spoiler, we don't know if it's really happening or if it is kind of part of Doug Quaid's like ego trip. You know what I'm saying? There are things that occur in it that make you go like, this could totally be fake. You know, I don't want to spoil it all, but there's little predictions that occur, little kind of foreshadows. There's at least one scene where people totally describe what's going to happen in the movie if you look close. Don't forget to check that out. But moving right along, thank you for joining us. Next week, Dolls. Check it out on YouTube, I guess. Be well.